François Adrian Vanderkemp. Francis Adrian Vanderkemp was one of the Dutch radical leaders of the Patriots, a minister and publicist who gave the Patriot movement a Christian tint in his blazing speeches. Having been a promising student in Groningen, Franeker and Amsterdam, he led the local militia in Wijk, Duurstede, and ended up in captivity. The Vanderkemp was released on the 9th of December 1787 for a ransom of 45,000 guilder and emigrated to the U.S.A. Life. Adriaan was the son of an army officer. His mother was related to Willem Jacob S. Gravesand, a scientist. He grew up in Zutphenenswal, but in 1766 the family moved to 's-Hertogenbosch. Adriaan studied at the local grammar school and moved to the University of Groningen to study Oriental languages and botany under Patriots. The Vanderkemp was offered a role as a civil servant in Elmina, now in Ghana, but did not go. Instead he went over to the Mennonites and studied theology in Amsterdam with Abraham Stahl and Wikipedia. The Vanderkemp refused an appointment in Goes and Macam, but accepted one at West Zaan. In 1775 he moved to Leiden. For the pulpit, Vanderkemp proclaimed, "In America the sun of salvation has risen, which will also cast its rays upon us if we so wish. Only America can teach us how to counter the degeneration of the national character, to curb the corruption of morals, to ward off bribery, to suffocate the seeds of tyranny, and to restore to health our dying freedom. The Supreme Being has ordained that America shall be Holland's last preacher of repentance." It is said Vanderkemp was the author or ghostwriter of the libel to the people of the Netherlands. Simon Sharma notes he was the distributor of the pamphlet. The Vanderkemp wrote of series van T. Bijleverdrost pamphlets for Joan Dirk van der Capelle and Tot den Pol under different pseudonyms. The Vanderkemp and van der Capelle argued that these feudal rights were arbitrarily applied and even unlawful, thus bringing them into conflict with the Drossen and the Prince of Orange, who derived the rights of his noble position from such things. In 1782, he married a daughter of a mayor of Nijmegen. In 1783 Vanderkemp moved to Wijk Duurstede and became the leader of the local Patriots. The arrest of Princess Wilhelmina of Prussia at the end of June 1787 demanded a response, and Sir Vanderkemp and Adriaan de Nijers were taken prisoner on the 5th of July, near Wijk Duurstede by a regiment of soldiers from Baden-Urlach and taken to Amersfoort. After his release he emigrated to America. In his baggage was a portrait of Van der Capellen. The Vanderkemp published Van der Capellen's collected works in 6 parts and also contained, next to all Van der Capellen's reasonings, official documents that had not been intended for actual publication. The Vanderkemp as immigrant in 1788. Vanderkemp arrived in New York. He bought a farm in Ulster County, New York in 1789, not far from Kingston, and from 1777 the capital of New York. He had a house, a shed, a chicken coop, and a few slaves. In 1795, he was the founder of the Agricultural Society for the Western District of New York. The Vanderkemp was linked to and visited in Kemp by various founding fathers. John Adams, with whom he had an extensive and fascinating correspondence, Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Benjamin Franklin and Alexander Hamilton. Mrs. DeWitt Clinton, Hamilton and Tappan were all able to speak Dutch with his wife. He shared George Washington's interest in scientific agriculture after a visit to Mount Vernon. The The Vanderkemp withdrew from political life and threw himself into a new project at NIEUW Rotterdam, now called Constantia, in Oswego County. Constantia had a fantastic location and a fine nature, and there was sufficient game for hunting and fish in the lake. Also Marcus Imbard Brunel lived in the neighborhood. However, the bears and Native Americans were never far away, and his friend Adam Gerard Mapper lived at a day's travel away. The Vanderkemp moved his family to Barneveld, now called Trenton. His house in Constantia was converted into a school. The Holland Land Company, that had taken into its service Gerard Boone from Rotterdam, had meanwhile set up a proper village, planted a horns and had a sugar mill built. On the national scene, Vanderkemp's opinions influenced many of the great leaders of America. John Adams credited him with a vast view of civilization and respected his advice. His warm friendship with John and Abigail Adams endured till their deaths, and John Quincy Adams continued the relationship. He persuaded Thomas Jefferson to anonymously publish his religious work called A Syllabus of an Estimate of the Doctrines of Jesus compared with those of others. He was elected a Fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 1807. The Vanderkemp and Mapper wrote in an early stage about digging a canal between Albany and Buffalo. The work on the Erie Canal started in 1817. The state received 100,000 acres from Holland Land Company. The governor of the state of New York, DeWitt Clinton, named him the most scholarly man in the U.S.A. In 1820 he received an honorary degree from Harvard University, and was elected a member of the American Antiquarian Society in 1822. The Vanderkemp started to translate the 17th-century records in English, but his translation in the New York State Library went up in smoke in 1911. The Vanderkemp began to write his autobiography, but died of cholera on September 7, 1829 at the age 77 and is buried in the Oldham Barneveld Cemetery, Trenton, N.Y. Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts received his library.